I just trimmed up some weeping willow trees in our yard, and I'm going to use these branches to grow more weeping willows.
Alright, well, you have a whole bunch of cuttings here, all different sizes. So it's good that we have this so we can talk about the different sizes of them. And you can notice that some of these cuttings are really big cuttings. And sometimes these large cuttings aren't always the best use for production. You can still use them if you're doing it for yourself and you don't care about how the bottom of the tree looks. But what happens when you use these real big ones is that the first year's growth on it's real small, and as the tree gets bigger and bigger, that the small amount of growth to a large cutting that you have creates a lob, or it doesn't look right. It makes the real base real thick and heavy, but then the trunk of the tree is real thin, and it just doesn't have a real good appearance to it. So most of the times you try to avoid something this size, or this size is like a little bit big, but you can probably get away with it. But that's a really good size for a cutting. That's kind of where you want it to be at. Some of these guys here, they're a little bit small, but they can still go. Many times that the smaller you go, sometimes the better that they take. It's not always the rule. The bigger the cutting, the better the cutting. So when you're doing them, if you're doing them for like trying to resell, something like this might be too big. But if you're doing it for yourself and you don't care how the trunk of the tree looks, then go for it. You can use it. They actually will all work out. The best size is usually like this size to about, I would say maybe like this size for the cutting. That's the best size. Some of them, like this size is a little bit small, but it's okay. It all depends on the rest of the trees and how they're going to come out through. Now we have a pot right here we're working on. We're going to do a direct stick, which means that we're going to be sticking these guys into the container that you're going to be growing them into. So basically, when you push them into the ground, that's basically how you want to do it. You want to make sure that the top part of the tree is upwards and the bottom part is downwards, so the roots come out at the right end, and you want to push it into the soil. The real problem is that when you push it in the soil, it's like, how far down do you need to go? And you should push it down so that they are secure, they don't fall over, but you don't want to push it so far down that they can't get air to where the new callus and where the new roots are going to come out. So it really depends on the type of soil that you have. Typically speaking, the more air you can get through the root zone, or where the root cuttings are coming through, the better the roots are going to come. So you want an airy soil, like sand is usually used, or perlite's used. We use this here. This is our direct stick, so this is the potting mix that we use. So when you use something that's heavy, like suppose you put it in the soil, you can't push it down real far into the heavy clay because the air doesn't get down to it. But the more air there is in the soil, the further down you can push the cutting into. So that's the basic rules, and we kind of just push a whole bunch of them into it, and then we come back later and pull it apart and put each one into a single container, or each cutting into a single container. So this is basically how we go after it. This is something that we do for fun, and we do sell some of the trees that we grow with this, but it's just something. When you're growing trees at a nursery, you do it because you like growing trees. You don't do it for the money.
And we grow a lot of trees here at Highland Hill Farm. Now, Michael, if somebody has a question on how to grow a tree or how to propagate a tree, how can they get a hold of you?
Well, I do not want to say that I am an expert of it. Most of the time when we do cuttings, we actually look up the information before we start. So if you're trying to do like a spruce or a pine, and you give me a call, I'm going to be honest, like, I'm probably going to tell you I don't know how to do it. But you have to look it up. You have to research the information before you start to make sure you know how to do it. There's generalizations that I can tell you, but again, if you're doing holly or you're doing locust, there's a lot of different ways for propagation to occur on those, and research is the most important thing.
And each tree has a better time of the year to propagate?
Yeah, there's also different methods too. So like what time of year dictates the method that you're going to use. So there's a lot of there's a lot of information out there. Propagation is a huge field. There's a lot of different ways of going after it, and there's a lot of different systems. It's not like there's a science; it's more of an art. So you have to do a lot of research into it, understanding the tree that you're working with, and then selecting the right method and at the right time, or using the right type of hormones, or using seed. There's a lot of different things. There's an immense amount of information in it. So the best thing to do is to look it up.
Okay, but Michael, if they have a question, what number can they reach you at?
My cell phone number is 267-446-2376.
And what is our location?
We're located in Fountainville, Pennsylvania.
Thank you very much, Mike.
You're welcome.
Highland Hill Farm, what we'll do is we'll put a little plastic jug over this, and that'll help speed up the process. It'll make it into a little miniature greenhouse. You can use all kinds of jugs to put over top of your cuttings, as we do at Highland Hill Farm. If you have any more questions, just give us a call, 267-446-2376.
This is a used bakery box for donuts. I like to recycle things, and I found a good use for this. It is a way I can display items that I have for sale. You see, it really makes this thing sort of float over top of the box. Makes for an interesting way to use it for advertising of small items that I have for sale.